Dawn Burns is a mom, a wife, and the author of two children's books called This is Charleston and This is Nashville. I talk one-on-one with Dawn about these books and what's next for her for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Dawn Burns, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a blogger, a mom, and a children's book author of two successful books. This is Nashville, a place that I really, really love. And of course, my hometown here in Charleston, This is Charleston. And the special books feature beloved places around Charleston and Nashville, including the Ryman Auditorium, also Rainbow Road, which is down the street here, the Battery, Shimp Creek, and other places in Charleston and Nashville. Let me ask you this, Don. Why This is Nashville and This is Charleston? Why now?
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a South Carolina native. I'm originally from the upstate, and then after college, I lived in Charleston for a bit, and then kind of a journey back through the upstate, and then have lived in the Nashville area for the past 9 years. I, in Nashville, have a website called The Nashville Mom, where I share all kinds of fun things to do around town. And growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher. Fun fact, I did become a teacher, but I always loved children's books. And so kind of with my writing about Nashville, my love of teaching and children's book, I just decided to combine my passions and love into the children's book. And then I knew I wanted to write about my favorite places, and obviously Charleston is one of those. We're now actually splitting our time between Charleston and Nashville, and so I'm a little bit in both places, and so just sharing about all the special parts of these areas.
Oh, yes, and I want to give my own fun fact, because back in 2022, my employer, which I work for now, sent me to Nashville for the first time ever.
Okay, well, I hope you had a good time.
Had a great time. In fact, I went back 3 times, and I'm heading back in the next month, so that's going to be exciting.
Okay.
But let me ask you, what has these children's books taught you about these particular locations, Charleston and Nashville?
I think both areas are so special because they both have very rich histories. Obviously, when you think of Nashville, you think of all the music scene, like you mentioned, the Ryman. You think of the history and the culture. In Charleston, we're surrounded by beautiful water, and I think of Shimp Creek and like all the sunsets and all the historic homes. And of course, you can't think of Charleston without thinking about Rainbow Road. So both Nashville and Charleston are towns where people are always visiting. And then residents in both areas have a lot of pride about their town as well. And so these books are kind of written for locals to have kind of a keepsake of their town, the special things and places, as well as those who are visiting to take a little piece home with them that they can look back over. So I think both are just, to me, a celebration of these awesome places.
And I love the Ryman Auditorium. As a matter of fact, when I went back in December, I went there on a rainy Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon and went there and just loved the place immensely. But when you were writing these children's books, Dawn, what more did you learn about Nashville and Charleston?
I learned that both areas have changed a lot over the years. Both cities are growing a lot. We have tons of people moving in. But I've learned that the places that make Nashville and Charleston, stand out, or these landmarks have been here for many, many years, and they're still here, and they're still super special, and they're still being celebrated. So I think from that we can learn, yes, things change, but we have our traditions and our places that are always going to be around.
Always going to be around. And what traditions and places that you wish you could have put in these particular books?
Yeah, so for Nashville, we have a lot of great sporting teams. We have the Nashville Preds hockey team. We have the Tennessee Titans, of course. And just with me being a small self-published author, you had to get all these permissions and things like that it was just a little bit out of my wheelhouse. And so I would have loved to have incorporated some of those teams, but it just I just didn't think it was a mountain I could climb at that time.
Oh man, what more mountains did you have to climb in order to publish these particular books?
Right. So I think writing a book, it just was something I didn't know anything about, to be honest with you. And so it felt very overwhelming.
Oh,
Where to begin?
yeah.
I mean, how to even get started. And so for a couple years, I wanted to do this. And every year, at the beginning of the year, when we look at the year ahead and make goals and resolutions and things, I thought, this is going to be my year. I'm going to write my book. And then I would, again, just feel overwhelmed, and I didn't do it.
Mm.
So finally, in 2021, yes, the years are getting all mixed up for me. But in the beginning of 2021, I said, this is going to be my year. I'm going to get this book done, and the first being This Is Nashville. And so I think it just was a mountain in itself of just figuring out how to even go about it, because I didn't know.
Didn't know. So what do you know now about writing children's book that you didn't know before?
So, I've just learned a little bit more about the process, kind of what you need, working with an illustrator who luckily was also a graphic designer, because, to me, it seemed like it should be easy. Just put the words and the art on a piece of, Microsoft Word document and upload it.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. There's a lot of spacing requirements and what they call bleed or non-bleed. That means if your ink or your illustrations go off the page or you want them on the page, a lot of things like that. And so I learned I needed a lot of help. And so luckily I found some people that could help me along the way. So that's probably my number one thing, just find people who can come alongside you who do know how to do things.
And from obviously a reader's perspective, how have you helped people better understand Nashville and Charleston?
So some of the feedback I've received is that, they're a little bit like a bucket list or an idea, a guidebook of like, okay, what are we going to do this weekend? I can flip through the book and say, oh, why don't we go over to Pitt Street Pharmacy, which this is Charleston, and, grab a soda fountain drink or an ice cream and walk down to the Pitt Street Bridge. Or in Nashville, I mentioned some of our parks that are in town too. So just giving ideas for locals and people who are looking to visit the area, some ideas on the best things around town.
And I'm trying to hit some of the other locations in Nashville. My next trip here in the next couple of weeks, I want to get down to the West End and finish looking at the Gulch and all those other places, and Vanderbilt and the hospital area, and of course, East Nashville and all that. But man, an amazing city. But which one of these destinations or landmarks in Charleston and Nashville really describes you as a person?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think that, I enjoy being outside. I have two dogs, and so we love just getting out and about and exploring and just being outside. So, I'd say some of the parks in Nashville, the Ryman. I mean, it's just such a special building, any kind of like live music or concerts. And in Charleston, just, being by the water, I would say. So both kind of have a lot of my favorites included.
And I know this might be a redundant question, Ms. Dawn, but what is Charleston from a Nashville perspective?
From a Nashville or Nashville?
Nashville perspective.
What do Nashville people think about Charleston? I think Nashville, as well as everyone. I mean, Southern Living has named Charleston the #1 best city, I think, a couple years in a row. And so I think people think of the culture, the history in Charleston, as well as the food scene. Mm-hmm. So I think, people see it as an awesome place to visit.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I know Nashville was included in that list just this year and the previous year. But I want to ask you this too. What is Charleston and Nashville from a child's perspective?
I think for my kids, they would say when they visited Charleston over the years, just, a love of going to the beach. And last year we were visiting during the bridge run,
oh, yes.
Which is such a you know, an annual event. It's really fun, and our hotel was right underneath the bridge, and so we could look out and see everybody running. And
Yes.
so I think they just equate it to a lot of fun things going on. You know, obviously the history too. I'm a big history person, and so my kids sometimes roll their eyes because I'm, you know, make them talk about history or talk about, you know, these historic landmarks and things. I think one day they'll appreciate it. They're 11 and 13, so they don't really appreciate much that their mom shares with them right now. But
What else do you want to share with them and the readers when it comes to Nashville and Charleston?
so I think my goal in my books or things that I share on my website or whatnot is just to enjoy your local town, your community, to get out and explore because both towns have so much to offer,
Yes.
so much to do all the time, and a lot of times free opportunities.
Yes.
You know, in Charleston, you can just get out and go walk around, you can go to the beach, and that is, you know, maybe outside if you have to pay for parking, is free. Nashville, you know, there's always live music going on. A lot of times, like, you know, set up in there's one that's like under the stars. And so, you know, you just go and sit outside, listen to music, take a picnic dinner, and just enjoy. So I think like the goal is just to get out, enjoy your community, be involved, and explore where you live.
And this might be a redundant question too, Miss Dawn, but what from these particular two books, I should say, do you want to actually create in real life?
Oh, you know, one thing that's in the Charleston book is dolphins.
Oh yes.
And so anytime I see a dolphin in the water, it just excites me every time. It never gets old. And
Right.
so I think just like getting out of the water and seeing, you know, nature and these natural creatures, that's exciting to me.
That is really, really amazing. What do you want to do next?
You know, I'm really not sure, Quentin. The goal kind of was to write about my favorite places. I also have a coloring book version similar to these for a little town called Fairhope, Alabama, that came out maybe 2 years ago. And so I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to continue writing about some other favorite places. Like I say, I also have a fondness for animals and dogs. So there, you know, I have a little bit of a story about that that comes to mind. But right now, I'm just sort of focusing on these books and sharing them, and just being in the moment and enjoying both of these cities as well. And so I'm not really sure what the next step is.
And what other moments have you been able to experience as a result of writing these two books?
Yeah, I think you know, the books has given me the opportunity. Like I say, I am a teacher as well. Like I have taught third, fourth, and fifth grades. This year, I'm actually a yearbook teacher at my kids' school. Luckily, we just finished the yearbook for the year, so we're glad to have finished that. But it's given me the opportunity to go to some schools and read to the kids, and I've also been able to talk about the writing process, publishing, and that sort of thing. What's pretty cool, and I don't think I realized it then or many years later, when I was in elementary school, I won a writing contest at my school. And you know, now that I've written these books, I can kind of look back and think, wow, my writing kind of started then all along the way. Like I just didn't pay attention to it. But that's been really fun for me to go talk to these students and inspire them, because everybody has a unique story. We all have many stories to tell. And, you know, I encourage them to get a little notebook or just a piece of paper and jot down ideas they have about a story. Or for kids who love to draw, you know, they could be an illustrator for a book. And so just anything I can do to encourage them along the way.
Now that you've written these two books, what else are you jotting down in your notebooks about Nashville and Charleston?
Well, I am always, and I'm just always looking for what's going on. What are fun things that I personally would like to do? What do I think that maybe people who read my blog would be interested in? people are always looking for things to get out and do with their families. I think now more than ever, we need to find things that we can be engaged with our families and not, on screens as much. And so anything that I can do to get my kids out and about or encourage other families to do, I'm all about that. So like I say, both towns have so much to do. It's not hard to find some fun activities.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you this too, Don, as I'm trying to end the interview, but I come up with some more questions. But what have you brought from the book to your blog as a result of these two books?
Right. So, I mean, both books and things that are in them are definitely, people constantly ask me, hey, I'm going to Nashville. What are your favorite places? Or Charleston. I'm coming to Charleston. Where should I go eat? Things like that. And so, I can point them to the books and say, hey, it has lots of good ideas and information in there, some landmark places you want to go. So they kind of tie along together.
That's really, really amazing. Well, author Don Burns, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.